There is a big difference between what bankers and accountants think are assets compared to what rich people think are assets. We will here go through what the difference is together with a couple of examples afterwards, where we can see the difference between the bankers and accountants' definition of an asset compared to the rich people's. But first we will go through what an asset and a liability is for both groups, so you also can guess on the examples and find out if you have a rich person's mindset or not. My name is Daniel and I'm here to help people with personal finance and show how to start a digital side hustle of your own. If you're interested in improving your personal finance or start a digital side hustle of your own, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you find this video helpful. What is an asset? For bankers and accountants, an asset is an object or a resource with economic value, which can be owned by an individual, corporation or country, which means that an asset is something you have bought or created and that you can sell for money with its current value. Usually you see assets on a company's balance sheet where you can see everything that the company has of value. An asset can also be that if somebody owes you money, then the amount which is owed to you is the value of the asset. If you can collect the money, you can either remove the asset as a loss or you can sell it to another collector for a discount, which then can collect the money on your behalf. For rich people it is quite more simple. An asset is an object or resource which puts money in your pocket, whether you work or not. You don't have to work for the asset to generate money for you. It does this month after month as long as you own it. Even though bankers and accountants' assets can be sold for money, then if it decreases in value over time, then rich people won't see it as an asset. They will see it as a liability. What is a liability? For bankers and accountants, a liability is something a person or a company owes to somebody else. This is usually a sum of money. For most people it is probably a loan, bills, rent, mortgage or accrued taxes, where they have bought something and now owes either the bank, government or a seller an amount for when they have bought it. If you choose to lease your car or a craftsman does some work before getting his payment, then the bill here will also be seen as a liability, as you will need to pay for it in the future. For rich people it is again quite more simple. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. Here it doesn't matter what it is, as long as it takes more money out of your pocket than it puts in, then it will be a liability. Rich people believe that a lot of us go through life gathering items which we believe are assets, but if we use the rich people mindset on them, then we discover that they are actually liabilities in disguise. We will here go through a couple of examples to see if you can distinguish between an asset and a liability and what kind of mindset you have. Is a chair an asset? It depends who you ask. Can the chair be sold for money? If the chair has a value, then the bankers and accountants will count it as an asset, due to the fact that if you sell it, then you will receive money for it. We can then ask ourselves, can the chair put money in our pockets? For most chairs they will fall in value over time as they get worn from getting used and by being a natural material. Due to this, they will take money out of your pocket while they fall in value, and rich people will therefore call them a liability. Is a car an asset? It depends who you ask. Can a car be sold for money? If a car has a value, then the bankers and accountants will count it as an asset, because if you choose to sell your car at some point, then you will receive money for it. We can again ask ourselves, can the car put money in our pockets? Most cars will fall in value over time, because the manufacturers keep producing newer cars, which will be more attractive for the buyers. When a car gets older, it usually also has a higher risk of needing maintenance and repairs. The car also needs gas to run and you are required to have insurance on it, which you will also have to pay for. This means that in general the car will take money out of your pocket and rich people will call them a liability. Is a house an asset? This one is tricky, so let's see if you can guess it. Comment below if you think a house is an asset. Can a house be sold for money? Usually a house has a value, which is why it will always be an asset for bankers and accountants, because if you choose to sell your house, then you will receive money for it. If you have a mortgage, then you will have to pay that back, but the rest you can keep for yourself. Here we ask ourselves, can the house put money in our pockets? This is where the tricky part is, because if you choose to live in the house yourself and pay all the bills and mortgage that follows with it, then it will actually take money out of your pocket each month, and rich people will therefore classify it as a liability. But if you choose to rent out your house to somebody else, where your rental income can cover for the bills and mortgage, then you will most likely have a positive cash flow, which puts money in your pocket each month. At this point, the rich people will call the house an asset. Is stocks an asset? Can the stocks be sold for money? Stocks usually have a value, unless the company has gone bankrupt and the value goes to zero. If you choose to sell your stocks, then you will receive money for it. Because of this, bankers and accountants will call it an asset. We have to ask ourselves, can stocks put money in our pockets? For most stocks, there aren't any expenses when you are holding them, which means that the stocks have an opportunity to put money in your pocket. This can happen if the stock pays out dividend or gains in value before getting sold. Because of this, the rich people will call them an asset. Is cash an asset? This one is also a bit tricky, but let's try to ask ourselves the questions. Can the cash be sold for money? The cash already is money, so it already has a value in itself. Because of this, bankers and accountants will call it an asset. Can cash put money in your pocket? Technically, cash is already money in our pocket, but for it to be an asset, it will have to generate more money than it is right now. But cash can't multiply on its own. It will either have to be invested in something else or stand in a high-yield savings account for a very low amount each year. If you just keep the cash, then due to inflation, the cash will fall in value over time. But for our question, cash is kind of a gray area, which is the closest to a liability. You will have to make your cash work for money before it can be an asset. Therefore, rich people won't gather a pile of cash, as they will always invest it in another asset, which can generate them even more money each month. Is a computer an asset? It depends who you ask. Can the computer be sold for money? Most computers still working can be sold for a value, which is why it will be seen as an asset for bankers and accountants. Because if you choose to sell your computer, then you will receive money for it. Can the computer put money in our pockets? Many of you will probably say that it depends on what you do with the computer. If it can generate money or if you spend more money on it. But if we talk about the computer by itself, then it can put money in our pockets without having us to work on it. As it decreases in value over time, it will take money out of our pocket, and rich people will call it a liability. We hope you have figured out what the difference is between a banker and accountant's mindset compared to rich people. If you want to be rich, then next time you're gonna buy something, think about whether it is an asset or a liability, and if it will help you on your journey to building wealth or if it will slow you down. If you are interested in more topics like this, subscribe to the channel. We will post new videos every week. And remember to hit the like button if you found this video helpful.